Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome, and I'm Robbie.
I'm Jason.
And welcome to the table. We are so excited to have you guys here. We have a phenomenal game that is one that I remember Jason sending me pictures about today's game and thinking, man, I've got to own that game. My wife is absolutely like, this is so up her alley. I can't even imagine she would have any negative feelings about this game. So super excited about it. Jason, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. We were talking a little bit before we started recording. I'm still, if for those who've listened to the previous two episodes will remember, I've been sick, and I've gone up and down. We've even had to cancel. I didn't tell you this, Robbie. We were going to do a quick weekend trip to Pigeon Forge this weekend to see with my mom and Chuck, but we had to cancel that because I'm still sick, and I just don't want to pass anything on them. Like, there's no guarantee I'm going to be better. And they're older. Love you, Mom, Chuck, if you guys are listening. But we wanted to make sure that we didn't have any issues with it for sure. So we're going to reschedule that for the spring. And I was kind of bummed because there's a Buc-ee's, in Sevierville now. I really needed to hit Buc-ee's as well as all my other Pigeon Forge haunts. So slowly getting better. But life is good. The warehouse has calmed down a little bit since Black Friday. So that's a good thing. And we're kind of getting on a normal pace now. How are you doing, man?
Hey, we're surviving, I think is the best
Vlogmas,
way
right? Vlogmas.
To put it. Yeah. So, for those of you, I know lots of our crowd has connections to us in disc golf that are listening right now, but obviously as this grows, if you're listening in the future, I run a YouTube channel over in the disc golf space called Robbie C Disc Golf. And one of the things I try to do in December is my content's generally teaching content, and educational content for beginners. Kind of the heart of what inspired even us doing this podcast. But in that vein, in December, I release one video every single day up through Christmas. So 25 days, 25 videos. It's a ton of work, but I also get to have some fun and like shoot some different style videos that I don't normally do. But I have an editor that edits my videos 11 months out of the year, and then we get to Vlogmas, and because it's so many videos, I help jump in that editing world, and that is where I'm realizing I'm just so bad at it, Jason. I'm so bad at it, and it takes me so long, but enjoying that. So we normally in our episodes dive into like what games we've been playing, and I will tell you that it's a super easy mode on my end, because basically my day has been wake up, shoot a video, edit a video, stop for meals, and then go to sleep around like 12:30 or 1 o'clock. And so my wife and I have been passing in the wind. So we haven't really sat down to play any games. The only games that I would say I've been playing is I'll take an occasional break to play a game called Warcraft Rumble on my phone. And then I've been playing Wingspan a lot. I play Wingspan every night. So even then, it's almost been like a really nice, they have a digital version for your iPad. I think they probably also have it on Google Store. But you can play it on Board Game Arena too. But the digital version is really nice because my brain just gets so caught in the details of what I have been working on all day that Wingspan at this point, I can just vibe. Like I don't have to really think about anything, which if you've played Wingspan a little bit is going to sound like there's no way you could do that. But when you play a game enough, guys, you lean into it. But Jason, how about you? What games have you been playing lately?
We haven't played because of the aforementioned sickness, unfortunately. It's like, that's what I told Brad at work and other folks, like, I've been real sick when I haven't been playing board games and haven't had people over, because there was a few months stretch where at least once a week I had somebody over, whether it was Brad or Nate and Amy or Dakota, or when you were here, right? But we haven't had anybody over since you were here last, like 4 weeks ago, just because I've been sick. And so we haven't played a ton, but we did play 3 games. One super light game that's more like a kid's game we won't talk about, but I played a Christmas themed game called Holly Jolly. And it's still a lightweight game. It's really more than anything, it's a set collection game. It's a card game. There's cards out in the shape of a tree, and you're putting out a card that will add up to a number, and you use that number to either get an ornament around the tree or a present under the tree. That's really the entire game. Once all the ornaments have been taken out, that's it. What's unique about when I say set collection is because some of the ornaments you get could be like a snowman, and the snowman has different scoring things. Whoever has the most snowman ornaments gets 4 points per card. Whoever and everybody else gets 2 points per their snowman cards. The Santa Clauses are just straight up points, but they let you take a present from underneath the tree. There's one that's just pure set collection. Like if you have one snowflake, it's 2 points. If you have 2 snowflakes, it's 4 points. And so it's kind of a back and forth thing where you kind of see what set collection you want to go to. One of the fun things, the presents underneath it. So presents you turn over so you see what you're getting, but stocking cards stay turned face down, and you could get coal or you could get something really good. And of course I got the coal. And I think Elizabeth ended up winning that game because she's been beating me like crazy left and right lately. We've had Holly Jolly for quite a while. I wanted it. It's a Christmas game. We don't really have too many. All of our Christmas games are lightweight. The heaviest one is Patchwork, which is a 2-player only polyomino game. And Uwe has just changed the theme. There's a Halloween themed one. There's a Valentine's one. There's an Americana one, and there's a Christmas one. There's probably other ones as well. Game plays the same, so we only have a couple of Christmas games. But Holly Jolly, we were happy to play. It's fun. It's very lightweight. It's more like a kid's game or a family type game because you can play it really quick, but it was fun. The other game we played was one I've been excited about for quite a while. Hey, Bo. Elizabeth just came downstairs. She's hosting a game night. I hope game night went well. And if any of your coworkers are listening, hopefully Elizabeth didn't beat you guys too bad. The other game is a game called World Wonders. It's not getting a lot of play. Some of the content creators talked about it, mostly because it just got released in America a few months ago, I think, from Arcane Wonders. It's a Civ type game, not heavy Civ, light Civ, but it's a polyomino game in that each round you basically have, the fun thing about it is an action selection game in that you have 7 coins to take actions. And you can buy polyomino pieces to put on a board. You can buy roads, you can buy towers, or you can buy world wonders like if we ever cover this game, there's a chance we may eventually cover this game, but the production's amazing and actually has little wood pieces that look like, oh my gosh, the Parthenon. There's one that looks like, the Port de Alexandretta. All kinds of just amazing pieces. You're essentially using action selection points. You're using your coins to buy polyomino pieces to fill up your board. There's some placement rules. Go ahead.
A quick break for people who are like getting into the space. Polyomino is a word that I know it from playing games with you, but if you're not familiar with polyomino, explain that real fast, just so people can visualize.
Great point. I should have explained that. So when we say polyomino, we really think Tetris type pieces. So most of us understand Tetris. In Tetris, the basic one, you have the 2x2 square, you have the 1x4 piece, the one that's like 3 pieces up and 1 over, and a couple others. So when we say polyomino, it's more like Tetris style pieces. And in polyomino games, and Robbie and I have already talked about what our polyomino main game will be. So that'll be in a few weeks probably. But in polyomino games, you are basically getting these pieces, putting on a board, and your board is essentially a grid. It could just be a pure 12 by 12 square grid, and your polyomino Tetris style pieces you have to fit in there based on the placement rules of that game. Most of the time they just can't go outside the board, they can't overlap. And for this one, which is not uncommon for other ones, there's certain placement rules by what it can or can't be by. Like a purple building can be by another purple building or a road. The blue buildings, same, they have to be near either a road or something like it. And there's an edge of the board it can be by, so you can start from somewhere. So that's what a polyomino type game is. I've realized that I love polyomino games. Robbie and I played, showed him one called Planet Unknown. That's probably one of my favorites. But there's
so good.
It is great. Like it is. Whenever I talk about Planet Unknown, like of all games I wish I played more, it's that one. And so it's fantastic. So, but World Wonders, polyomino game, you're buying with your action selection, with your coins, you're buying these pieces that are different buildings to fill up your board. You're also buying World Wonders. The two cool things about this game, the action selection is interesting to spend coins, and you reset every round. So you have 7 coins to spend, and once you spend them all, you're done. The next round, now you have 7 coins again. You can actually take out a loan for 2 coins that you have to pay back later for 3 coins. I never thought I'd like the loan concept, but Liz and I took many loans in this game, and it worked out great because you could be at a certain point where like, oh, I really need to buy something for more than 1 coin, but I only have 1 coin. And so I take that loan and you're basically borrowing money from yourself, just like a loan is, right? With a little bit of interest.
Yeah.
But the coolest thing, you can buy a world wonder at any time. You can buy one of the wonders of the world, but it'll cost the rest of your coins. So whether you're on the 2 spot and have 5 coins left or the 6 spot and have 1 coin left, you get the world wonder. And so that's just really, you're playing this kind of push your luck game, because to get the world wonder, you have certain requirements as well. Like it has to be over water, but touching a blue building, or touching a road and touching a green building. And in a 2-player game, it was pretty easy because we could see exactly what each of us were doing. But in a 5-player game, you're like looking at what each person's doing, and it would become a little bit more tense for sure. It's a fairly quick game at the beginning, but a couple of reviewers have said this, and I totally agree. If you have analysis paralysis, this is a game I wouldn't want to play, because especially if you can't conceptualize the Tetris style polyomino pieces quickly, because otherwise you're looking at every piece and thinking, well, that could go there and that could go there and that could go there. And if you're 4th in the turn order, well, those 3 people have just taken pieces you wanted. So now you're thinking, so I do agree that when we say analysis paralysis, it's not a negative term. It comes out negative. It's folks who are thinking through their play to the nth degree, as opposed to, let me just go with this and see what happens. They're literally trying to think every possible solution for every action they take, or many solutions for many actions they take. Part of the heavier games we play require some of that if you want to do well, if you're really trying to win. But I play enough games that I'm trying to have fun too with it. And so if you're struggle with making those decisions quick to do stuff, World Wonders can be a little stifling for that. But I love it. This is definitely one that I go on the list to show you, because you and I do not struggle with AP at all. Yeah. In some games, we all have to slow down at the very end, because we're just trying to, okay, we're at the last round. I need to get every possible point I can get in a tight game, right? And I'll give a pass for most people who struggle with AP in the last round when we know it's the last round. But having played with you, Kimberly, Brad, like none of them are Nate and Amy, like all the people we played with, none of the folks I currently in kind of my game group world are having analysis paralysis, which is great. So anyway, I've talked a long time about World Wonders. I really like that game. It could, if I did my top 10 of all time, there's a good chance it'd be right outside the top 10, if not in it.
Wow.
That's how much I liked it. And it could be recency bias for sure. But it was a lot of fun. We're going to show it to Ryder. Ryder works tomorrow night, my youngest son, but he's my board gamer. So probably Thursday night, I'm going to show that to him. So anyway, that's World Wonders. It is not a heavy game. So even for a beginner player, because you're either buying a polyomino piece to put on your board, or you're buying a row to put on your board, or you're buying a world wonder to put on your board. That's pretty much it. But then there's some like common goals you're going for at the end of the game. So the strategic side of trying to minimize your actions to maximize your points could be a little tight, but for the gameplay itself, it's not a tough game for a beginner. A Planet Unknown in some ways is a little more challenging because we have all the tracks you're moving up, right? There's less restrictions for your placement, but you're really trying to look, okay, what track do I want to go up? So anyway, that was a lot about World Wonders. It was awesome. It was fantastic. I remember watching the Dice Tower talk about it a long time ago and say I wanted that game for sure. So happy to get it to the table. There you go.
The polyominoes are the polyomino game that I like first remember coming across is one that's it's a big box game in Blockus.
Yep.
However you want to
heard it both ways.
Spell that. Yeah. And you have 21 different shapes. Everyone has the same amount of shapes, and you're laying them out on a grid together and trying to you connect on corners, and your color can never be flush. So it makes it beautiful as they all convert, all 4 colors converge in the middle. Love that game. And there is just such a joy to, I'm getting these random shapes and I am just filling up almost all my spaces on the board, and it is so satisfying. I will say Ryder Collins is the most impressive board gamer I've ever played with, because Ryder is the best min-maxer I've ever met, who also doesn't struggle with AP in any game that I've played with him. It's insane. If I ever wanted to be, if I was okay, I'm going to go play a tournament of the said board game, my first call would be to Ryder and be like, all right, dude, you've crunched the numbers in this game. Talk to me, most efficient strategies. Here's what I'm thinking. Because I know that Ryder is the guy who would have that, he would just know it.
Especially if he knows the game, for sure. If he knows the game, he would know that for sure. So, Yeah, he and I are very much alike in trying to min max, but as you said, he crunches the numbers that I just don't crunch. Like on games with odds and chance, he crunches those, and I'm like, it's just too much for me. I can't. But his mind just works so fast. I could do it, but not as fast as he does. So I'm excited.
We're pulling people out in Dinosaur Island, and he's just like everyone that gets drawn. He's like, all right, so I have like a 33%. Okay, I've got a 28%.
Yeah.
Kill it, dude. Way to be. It's awesome.
We're excited because both the boys are back. They're on winter break right now. Ryder just moved in back today, just did his white glove. They do it's called white glove at Liberty. Basically, they do an inspection of the room to make sure they've cleaned everything up. So he just did white glove today, and Xander moved back yesterday. So we're excited to have them both back. But we're finishing One Piece, and then me and Ryder play a ton of board games while he's here. Speaking of Dinosaur Island, though, we actually had somebody message me or comment somewhere saying they actually bought Dinosaur Island from our recommendation as well. And and I was like, that's fantastic. That's awesome. We've had a lot of take this time. Thank you to everybody who sent us messages, made comments. We're glad to hear the games we're recommending are working out for you. I think I said it last time, but that's our goal. Our main game for sure. We will only cover a game that we think can be good for you. And we both may not like it. Our score, like's not the right term. We may not have the same rating, right? Yeah. But it's games our goal is to recommend games, to highlight games that we think are great for newer gamers, for beginner gamers. That's the whole purpose of Bards of the Board. We're happy to hear your guys are buying the main games and as well as some of the heavier games. I love Dinosaur Island. It's probably my number one game of all time. It'll rotate around, but I can't remember who did it, but I'm glad. Thank you for the ones who did that. We're excited to hear it for sure. So
yeah, no, it is like the quack. I think of the like dice tower cards you have or stuff inserted, and I just get excited for games that like we love so much and thinking, all right, one day, you know what we should do, like when the podcast continues to grow, you're coming back and listening to this episode because we're on episode 100 and you decided to join back in the beginning and here's where we started. But like there's some like orange power that we have that we added to the game, and it's like, all right, here we go. The oranges now do blank.
Yep.
That would be super, super fun.
Definitely. So
today's game, if you want to jump in, Jason, we can head on.
Absolutely. This is a good time talking about games we like playing, games we like recommending because we think they're good for you. Today's game is called HerStory. A take on history called HerStory. Remind you, like we already kind of talked about it, but like we are here to kind of open you guys up to new games, talk about those games, talk about mechanics, be very transparent. If there's things on there that are problematic or challenging, good, bad, or whatever it may be, and cover all aspects of that. Today we're doing HerStory. Like Robbie said, it's been on my radar for a little while. I got on a really good deal a few months ago. And then I played it. And like Robbie said, I texted him during that. Cause I'm like, I haven't met Lindsay yet, but I'm pretty certain she's going to like this. And so I was excited that, to tell him about that. And when he came, we weren't able to play it. But then like a week later, after he got back, he told me he'd played it. I was like, that's perfect. And I knew immediately, like it has to be a Bard's discussion. Once you played it and the review was good, especially from the most important person being Lindsay, I knew it had to be on here. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Robbie, to kind of talk about the game and go from there.
Yeah. So in HerStory, which that already HerStory, Lindsay has really leaned into that one. You want to play a HerStory? Like she is not a Southern gal, and most stretch of the most Southern thing that my wife does is she loves Chick-fil-A. Like that is.
Yes.
That's about where her Southernness stops. She doesn't even have a Southern accent. I would say it's wild, but, in this game, HerStory, you're an acclaimed author writing a book about the stories of remarkable women throughout history. And these are women from every facet of life you could imagine. They're there. And so many women that like, I love world history. I try to lean into world history, and I'm pulling these cards out and I'm seeing a lady for the first time that I'm like, I have literally never heard of her before.
Yep.
And even my wife, who also, she's a teen librarian. She was seeing people she'd never seen before, but then you also had classics, which was super cool. So you have these women who are going to become chapters in your book. So you're going to write these chapters and discover iconic historical women as you do research, draft chapters, and then complete the highest scoring book to win. So the winner of the game is the one who has the most points. It's that simple. But released in 2022, designers on the game were Nick Bentley, Emerson Matsuuchi. Wanted to make sure, gotta get the names right. And then Danielle Reynolds, published by Underdog Games. It plays with 2 to 5 players. We played it at 2. This is one that I could easily see not losing any form of. I actually think it would be even more exciting.
I agree.
At 5, because at 2, a game that we talked about last episode that we played in the meantime, Kodinka, it just kind of felt like a race of whoever got it first. You just accomplished what you needed to accomplish. This one, very, very different in what you're doing. So on your turn, you get 3 different choices. You can research. There are these icons that have different resources on them. There are pages, there are light bulbs, and then
magnifying glass.
So it's like you're supposed to be either like getting ideas or reading. I think it's getting ideas is the light bulbs, reading like backgrounds on the character is the pages,
doing interviews.
Like it's very. This is a game that the theme drenched throughout it, which is super cool. This is not we just wanted to make a Renaissance game. So we actually love our game and we needed a theme because we couldn't just have A meets B. This is so heavily invested in. You can draft a chapter, which is where you're going to take one of the women who can be put into your chapter and you're going to pull them off of the board and reserve them. Very similar action to the game we discussed in episode 4 or 5, Splendor, where you can draft it to your hand so that other people can't take it. This is huge because as you're playing, some people will you'll look at because all the resources are drafted face up as you're gathering those research tokens. So I can look and be like, oh, Jason has a lot of pages right now. And that lady, she requires like 8 pages. I bet, and she's 8 points. I bet Jason's going for her. So I could just draft her and that gives me 2 points. Unlike, what's it called? Unlike Splendor, where when you draft it, all you get is the gold wild card token. And this one, drafting gives you immediate points, which I thought was a really cool idea to have in the game. And then the other thing is you can complete a chapter. You can either from your drafts, you can spend the research tokens and the research credits to write your chapter and add them. The first person to have an 8th chapter added to their book, you conclude the round where someone finished their 8th chapter, and that's the end of the game. So you tally up your points. Player with the most points wins. There's your overall view of it. One thing to highlight about this game is how incredibly short the teach is for this.
Totally agree.
Like if you've played Splendor, this is such an easy jump to this game.
Yeah, it's almost like in some ways, it's the gameplay is almost easier than Splendor, or very similar to that. The one thing that makes it unique, and we haven't talked about it, we're going kind of in a deeper discussion now. I mean, like I said, for non-gamers, the teach of the game is less than 5 minutes. It's like you're going to draft tokens, turn those tokens in with the has icons to get cards. That's it. You can draft a card earlier for that 2 points. If you do, and then there's some little things. Now, what Robbie didn't say was some of those chapters that once you write them, because you draft them, and then once you write them, which is turning in the tokens that have the icons on there, some of them will have ongoing powers, and some of them will have in-game powers as well. One of it could be like at the end of the game, if you have at least 7 chapters, you get 5 points. One I had, our most recent game was because you also, when you write when you write the chapters, you get real-time points. There's points in the top left corner of that card. And then some of them have ongoing stuff. So like I had one that was just 1 point, but it was at the end of the game. For every card that was less than 4 points, I got 2 points. So I could have 16 more points just from that, depending on how you do it. A lot of cool ones are if you are in last place when you complete this chapter, get a bonus. If you're not in first place, get a bonus. That's where if there's any level of heavy, that's where the next level of strategy comes in, is trying to think out, okay, I want that card because it's going to give me this bonus. But like I said, it's so easy to do. And the reason why, when I say it's easier than Splendor because it actually kind of makes more sense. Splendor is an abstract game. And we love Splendor, but it's kind of abstract in that you're getting tokens to get cards, and now you have cards and tokens to turn in to get stuff. It's kind of abstracted. It's still very easy, but abstracted. Where this is, I get an icon, I turn this icon in to get a card.
Yeah.
That's it. And it makes sense because you're getting chapters of book of people So the easier the gameplay, and then the ongoing powers are the ones that if there's a level of next level strategy, which is good for newer gamers to have. So now you got to think about that next level of stuff. If there's anything that's challenging in that, is that, and it's all black and white. There's not a time. Thankfully, those ongoing in-game real-time bonus you have are black and white. It's not one I got to refer to a rule book. And some of the heavier games we play, it may have an ongoing bonus. We're like, what exactly does this mean? Got to go to the rule book. Okay, it's not clear. And I got to go jump on Board Game Geek to see to their forums to see what people have talked about. And often the designer of the game will answer that question. I've done that many times. HerStory is not that way. It is very black and white. You could take it up. You could probably open this game, put it out, read the rules, and start playing within 10 minutes. That's how easy it is for your first time to do it, because the rule book's only a few pages. It's some clean things. Just can't overemphasize. Like in our show notes, I put it in bold in all caps because it's so easy. Like I feel like I say this every week, but this teach is by far the easiest teach of any game that we've done.
For sure.
There's no doubt about that, because we can relate to it. We see pictures of people we may know, be it Dolly Parton, be it Alice Walker, the author of The Color Purple, be it Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Amelia Earhart, Anne Frank. We see people we know, so we're already bought into it. We're writing a book, and we're writing chapters, and we're getting tokens. I mean, it's super cool for sure.
Yeah, like when we played it, it's really fun because when I play at Jason's house, I think at this point I've probably played over 20 games at your house. Yeah,
you're now up. I think you're up to, in my app. I think you're up to now the 5th or 6th most amount of games played in my app, which is, I think it's like 27 or something. I looked at it the other day. Yeah.
So like that, I've played a lot of games with Jason, and he has taught me, I'm pretty sure all but like, if I didn't bring the game, I think there's only been one game that Elizabeth taught, and it was because Jason was doing something. And so Elizabeth and I went downstairs, like literally with, all right, you go ahead and start the teach, and here we go. It's the same way in my house. If you come to my house and you play a game, 99% of the time I'm going to teach. So Lindsay was so excited for this game. I was like, all right, I'll get snacks and drinks. You go ahead, head downstairs, pop open the box, and go ahead and start reading the rules. And I will, when I get down there, I'll just set it up. So by the time that I got literally drinks, snacks, went downstairs and set up the game, which is easy to set up. And we'll talk about the components here in a second, because Lindsay literally asked Jason, did you kickstart this?
Exactly. Oh my gosh.
Like, it's the component quality is insane. Yep. It's so good. But by the time I did that, she was literally explaining
love it,
how to play the game.
Fantastic.
By the time I wasn't even done setting it up. Like, it's that fast. And she's not normally the teacher of the game. She gets games. She's a gamer. So it's not like she's never played any of these before, but it's so beautifully simple. One of the things I really liked about the powers that exist, or the like special effects, whatever you want to have, describe it for the cards. It was that there are, the spread is so vast. So you have some that are like these. I love the one Jason referred to of like, if you have any less than 4-point cards, you get 2 extra points for each of them, kind of a deal. There was one that I saw that was, if you completed less than 6 chapters, I think you get like 8 or 10 points. Like it was crazy. What a catch up card. So I realized like when we're playing, Lindsay gets so wrapped up in the theme and she's like hyper focused. And I started from my first couple chapters. There are also women that like they have icons as their superpower or like as their power. So you don't have to do as many much researching because you've acquired resources in the min-maxing world. And that's something I always try to do when I play games is like if I can use an action to draft a resource that will then later on make me have to do less actions, or like I don't have to do that action again, I'll do that every single time. Even if it's less points, your actions create more points kind of a deal. So I'm doing this and Lindsay and I are like kind of keeping up and we both have 3 chapters. And then she just starts, because she had drafted all power ones. So she starts doing research over and over again. And I had like planned out looking at all the cards. I was like, I want to get this, this, and this. So then they all have icons. And then I have these sitting here waiting. And so then I just or like rope. That was the other thing is Lindsay got on to me because you're writing chapters. And I kept saying, and maybe I don't need to say this on the internet, but it's a funny moment. I kept saying like, oh, I'm going to buy her. Yeah. And Lindsay was like, you're not buying them. You're right. You're researching.
Yeah, you're researching.
Be careful. And I was like, all right, that's my bad. So she looks up though and she was like, oh, how many chapters do you have? And I was like, oh, I have 7.
Exactly.
And she's, what? So she started like scrambling to get caught up. But the component, one of the really cool parts about this is, so when it says you're writing a book, I'll jump ahead to the end of the game because you have this, I know you have your library card, but there's like another card you have, or is it your library card that you end up like creating the book cover with?
You have a card that is just a book cover that shows, there's a card, the library card. We didn't talk about, so the one, we'll go very tactical very quick, but there's a card that's a library card that, so there are 8 spaces where there are tokens out there that have icons, and just by bad luck of a draw, it may not have any icons you want. So the game does give you the ability, and it's very fun because it's a library card. I'm gonna hold it up for our YouTube watchers. That it literally is a library card. I just love that. Like people don't have library cards anymore because it's all electronic, but it's still fun. And you can flip this once to wipe all the tokens to put new tokens out there, or flip it one more time to wipe out the tokens. It's very similar to how in Cascadia you can use your acorns to do that. But yeah, you have the player aid, which tells you how to play the game, is also the cover of the book. I'm holding up right now. It's had it upside down. So HS for HerStory, and that's just very cool. It's another cool thing about that. Like this, it's functional because it looks like the cover of your book, but then also you turn over and the player aid is right there, which I love. Duplicative use cards, right? There's nothing wasted, but it's all used in a good way and not just filler for that.
Yeah. So as you write your chapters, you have all 8 of these incredible women lined up, and then you literally scoot like they're on the front side where you have the points and what is being used for like the function of the game. When you flip over to the other side, there's like biographical information about the woman on the front of the card. And this can be origins for her, why she was impactful. Right. And then there's like a fun fact on all of the cards, which is so cool. So you take the point, like the face up playing the game, you slide them all together, and then you slap that player aid card on, and there's your book. Yep. And it looks like a book. Yep. And so then you just flip it over, open the book. And that was the best part of the game, was like we sat there for 20, 30 minutes afterwards, just reading about all the women that we had written about in our book. And it was so interesting to learn. Like we want to play it multiple times just so we like take the women that we used the first game and we actually put a divider in there so that we don't see them again until we've used every card.
Yep. We did the same thing, not quite the divider, but when I put it up, I made sure I turned them the other way. Same concept. So I knew we'd already used those because I wanted to go through the other ones. Like it's like Robbie said, the information on there is amazing. It's a heavily researched game. I remember watching this on Dice Tower News a couple years ago when Underdog Games announced it. And I was like, well, that's very interesting. But they used 20 something different professors, instructors, and they even had a middle school help them do all the research for this. If you go to their site, all those people are listed as well as in the rule book. And like Robbie said, each woman's backstory is on the card, as well as that fun fact. Now, some of the cards, like I have a few in my hands, like there's Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein is an amazing thing. I was an English major, so I know Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. But like, she doesn't have any ongoing bonus, but she has 8 points. Like it's 8 points. And then Eva Peron, Don't Cry for Me, Argentina, for our Broadway fans. That's how I know Eva Peron. Did you know that she was known affectionately as Evita? Eva would use her position as First Lady to advance the cause of women's suffrage and labor rights. Maya Angelou, Don't Cry, or I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. There's a bunch of great ones out here. One I wanted to highlight. Oh, there's two I'm going to specifically highlight. And this is how great it is. Things I didn't know about, or things I knew about, but others didn't. Well, this card came up last night. I'm going to try to pronounce this. It's from China. Wu Zishan. So hers is at Game's End, 2 points for each chapter, worth less than 6 points, which is really cool. But she was actually the first and only female emperor of China. I was like, how fantastic is that? I didn't know that. I didn't know there was only one female emperor. Yeah. I didn't know there was ever a female, but she was the first and only female emperor of China. How great is that? And the last one, I knew this person because of my military background. Hedy Lamarr is her name. So in the golden age of movies, she was a movie star, but she basically, with a friend or with a colleague, created frequency hopping that eventually became the stuff for GPS, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi devices. This lady from Austria, young Austrian girl who becomes a Hollywood star, also creates what we basically know as frequency hopping. I know that from my military time because I did EHF and different frequency-related stuff. But I was like, how cool is that? And when I saw Hedy was on there, I was like, I think that's who I think it is. And just getting to read these is fantastic. Unfortunately, like I say, unfortunately, the rules tell you to put the book together and read it. I'm more like a kid on Christmas morning. I can't wait till they're done. So our house rule is once we write the chapter, we read it right then and there. Just because I don't want to wait. That's like cool. Both are great, right? Cool. You wait till the end, so you hear them all, or do it each time. And so that was our house rule, is that as we wrote each chapter, and like I literally wouldn't even turn over. Like, we're not allowed to turn over until then. And I really wanted to turn it over. I'm like, who is this person? How did I know this? Like, we'd see a name, we're like, that name looks very familiar. We should know who that is. And we, that's who, founded the Girl Scouts, or that's who did this, or that's who did that. I am not a history guy. I don't dislike history, but doesn't appeal to me that I go learn about it. But I just love this game. I love it so much because you're getting to learn things about different people. There's, like we said, there's obvious ones like Anne Frank, like, Dolly Parton's in there. But then there's ones who I didn't know. Wu Zishan, had no clue who that is. First female emperor of China, and the only female emperor of China. And of course, every one of these are like, is that real? I go out to the internet. I'm like, I don't know why I'm checking it, because every one of these is 100% correct, right? The game is correct. I'm like, how did I not know that? It's more like, how did I not know this? So that aspect of it is great. For sure. It's just fun. Like, I could just sit, like you said, I could just sit and read the cards, but I don't want to give away the fun of it, because I want to have that for later on for the next time we play it.
Yeah. I truly, like, I wouldn't be shocked if the next time we played, if Lindsay was like, oh, by the way, I did while you were out of the course, I went and read every single one of the cards. But the cards themselves, so nice. This game, at the price point that it's at, it was it's $20. And the quality of this, if you're new to the disc golf, or new to the board game space, sorry, got into the mode there for a second. If you're new to the hobby gaming space, when we say kickstart a game, this is something that the concept, the website probably started as like businesses struggling to get off their feet. Kickstarter is a way to get crowdfunded, essentially. And so board games have really leaned into the Kickstarter market in terms of, we really want to launch this game. So they put it on Kickstarter, people back it, and they usually end up getting some special edition copy as like a thank you to helping us get off the ground and get it to retail. So, when you kickstart it, you end up with these special components, things like that. Like when even Dinosaur Island that we talked about, like Jason is the Kickstarter Dinosaur Island. And so rather than standard plastic figurines, it has like different dinosaurs. Any other examples like that you can think of, Jason, of like common, like, oh, they kickstarted this, like this is a great, beyond the basic.
The main things when you kickstart a game, the most common things that are upgraded are you may get like a small expansion for free. Or probably the most common thing is metal coins instead of cardboard tokens, right? So often in games, when you get a base game, everything's in cardboard because it saves on cost. It helps the end consumer pay less for that game to have a little cardboard token that is a 1 coin or a 3 coin or a 5 coin. In Kickstarter exclusives, often if you're willing to pay the full price up front, because that's the key about Kickstarter, you're often paying more up front than you would if you waited a couple years to buy it on sale. But you get it earlier, and they often throw in these Kickstarter exclusives that give you bonuses for that. Like I have a bunch of Kickstarter games right now, like one behind me. It's called Wonderland's War, and it's another one that's high on the list we have to play. The art's amazing, but like the Kickstarter version, you got a bunch of minis. So that's the other big thing. When we say minis, basically a little plastic figure. Think of your toy soldiers you had as a kid growing up if you played with those. That's what a mini is. It's just higher quality plastic. And so often in games that would have a cardboard standee, so you'd have a cardboard person you'd move around the board. You now have this little plastic mini. That's the most common things that happen in those games. And I have a couple of Kickstarters that that are sitting over on the shelf right now that have come in recently for that. Usually upgraded components for sure. And so when I'm going to jump ahead because Robbie's leading this way, but in this game, you have these chunky cardboard tokens that have the icons for the things you're doing for research, which are just crazy. Like usually you have not cheap, but really small and thin ones because it saves on cost. These are really thick and really chunky. You have it feels like a leather bag. It's more like a vinyl bag that you pull these tokens out of. That's really thick quality. Your board is actually a rubber playmat, which is just so cool. Like most of the time you have a cardboard board that if you don't fold it right, over time it can get worn out more. Like if you play that game a lot, it's just the life of a cardboard board. And then the last one I liked, and you kind of saw, it's hard to tell the perspective of it, but the cards are not like traditional playing card size cards. They're slightly bigger, which they needed to have because they do have a bunch of text. But even for me, who usually needs glasses to read these cards, I actually don't even need glasses. The cards are big enough that they can still put a lot of text on there that you can still easily read. And I cannot emphasize how good that is. And for those who play a lot of games with cards, you can tell these are slightly upgraded. Not super thick, but you can tell they're not just the standard board game card. It's a slightly better quality because they wanted it to make sure that presentation was there. It's all awesome. The art on the board, all the components. I love it.
I mean, from a straight up business perspective, looking at the quality of the components that are in there, I literally, I fully believe that they made this game to go even.
Yeah.
Like that is the vibe that I get. Is sometimes you'll see a game and you're like, oh, this is really cool. This is really great. But I paid $20 or $30 for the concept of this game.
Yep.
Like the idea is what I bought to play this. That is not the case with HerStory at all.
Yeah.
Like it is every dollar you spend, I can just see it so clearly there. I mean, it's phenomenal. I cannot talk about the quality enough of this.
Yeah, because I don't even think they didn't kickstart this game. They have published other games called Trekking the National Parks, Trekking Through History, Trekking the World. And we actually own Trekking Through History, and we owned Trekking the World when it came out. And they didn't even kickstart this. I think that's how important it was for them because they didn't want to talk about a game that doesn't come out for 2 years. Now, one of the downsides about crowdfunded games, they often take a year to 2 years to come out for lots of different reasons. Crowdfunded games, you're often helping the designer finish the design of the game. Much of the early crowdfunding is where they post what the game's going to be like, and people are providing feedback real time on Kickstarter or GameFound, which is another bigger one that's helping with the crowdfunding, and it could possibly shape that game. But you're waiting a year or two. I still have one big Kickstarter, one of the few ones I ever went all in on to a few $100s worth, and 3 years later, it's still not delivered. it may get delivered in the spring. So like I've been waiting 3 years for a game I kickstarted in 2020, right? That's the life of Kickstarter. But HerStory, they announced it was out. They didn't kickstart it, and it just came right out. And like I totally agree that it doesn't seem like they're not out there to try to make a profit so they can go put another game out. They put this game out because it was a passion project that they, like you said something earlier, is right. They had the theme. It wasn't a game with mechanics that we threw something on. It was more like, we want to get these stories out about these amazing women.
Yeah.
How can we do that? Hey, let's write a book and tell a story and tell each of their individual story. It's what's one of the cool things about this, the profits they do make go to the Malala Fund. I think if I'm pronouncing that right. Malala is actually one of the characters in the game, was who actually got her last, I wrote her chapter the last time we played. I didn't buy her. I wrote her chapter, but basically she was the youngest person to win a Nobel Peace Prize at the age of 17. She's a Pakistani girl who was basically going to school and got shot in the face, and her family relocated to London, and she went to get her degree, and she created the Malala Foundation to basically try to help ensure girls around the world get education. So the profits, a portion of all the profits from this game go to that fund specifically to help educate girls around the world in those places that education is not a priority for the females. And I love that about this passion project of a game that's still a good game.
Yeah. When you talk about Kickstarters, it does make me think like like a rule in our house has been, I'm allowed to have one game kickstarted at all times. Like I kickstart a game and then you pay for it and then when it finally like comes out and we get it delivered, once it's arrived, my wife is like, all right, cool, we can go kickstart another one. The beauty of this podcast is I've been allowed to update my number to 2. So
sorry, Lindsay.
I've got 2 games that I have kickstarted, but and I'm waiting on it, but I'm pumped for it. Now, one of these things, like I want to bring up one negative here as a gamer, because I do think that it's an interesting thing to point out. So you can call it like a slingshot effect, a rubber band effect. Nobody likes a game where you just get absolutely crushed by someone, where it's like, okay, we're 2 or 3 turns in and I just know Jason's going to win. Like it's not now if we're playing a game that, you know, we've played enough, like we talk about Agricola, and Jason knows when he looks at his starting hands, if he has the right cards, he can't guarantee that he's going to win, but he knows he's about to put up a score. And that's when same thing. I'm at a point in Wingspan now where if I look at the starting birds and the birds in the tray, I can immediately, I know if I'm going first, like I'm going to be in triple digits, guaranteed. Like I would have to screw up something really bad in order for that not to happen. So, in this game, there is a balance mechanic. Quacks is the first double doozy we had, and it was a game that like you get rat tails. So if you get super far ahead, these rat tails help you progress through the board even easier. So it kind of lessens the gap between. Almost every single one of the powers that exist in this game all benefit catch-up type mechanics. If you're in last place, get this when you complete a chapter. If you're in last place, get this when you draft a chapter. If you're not in first, get this. So on the 2-player side, that did make it a little tough because since I wrote a bunch of chapters, like Lindsay had, I think it's Cleopatra or something like that, who every turn that she's not in the lead, she gets a point. And so I was just like, I've got to end this fast because she's just catching up to me. So I think that it is designed. It's just another reason that it's really can relate to newer gamers because it's very difficult unless people just aren't paying attention. It would be very difficult for someone to just run away with it.
I totally agree. That's one of my, I don't know if I put it in our show notes, but as I was playing the game, so Liz and I, this was our 3rd time to play it. We played it again last night just so I was fresh on my mind. And you're so right. So many of the cards that came out said for those who are, if you're not leading or you're in last place, and I was leading every turn except one. So I only got to use that one, even though I had 2 of those cards. But I think, and I agree for a gamer, who wants to min max, it can be seen as negative because you're always getting the bonus to help me back. But I think, and you hit the point just a second ago, this is great for a beginner, right? Because they want to always stay in the game, and I think the designers of the game realized, hey, we don't want people. This is my personal opinion, right? And one of the thoughts they may have had, is a better way to say that, is that we don't want to have a runaway winner in the game, because we've all played games like that. The best one, of course, was whatever it was called, Kingdom Builder. The one time we played with you guys, with you and Elizabeth, because it was very clear. I was like, "Oh, Jason's gone, and we're not catching up." Unique, very thing, Lightning Strike. Those games are not fun for everybody else. I've played enough that I'm okay with that because I played so many games. But for those who don't get play a lot of games, or especially newer gamers, you don't want to be like, "Oh wow, you're 20 points ahead in a game. The board only goes to 50, and you're already 20 ahead." So I like that that's here. For a hardcore gamer, you may not initially like it because it's not thematically there, but from a gamification is to try to make sure everybody is still having fun, because they know, I'm not going to run away from this because the wrong cards came out or the wrong icon chips came out, and it's just bad luck. It could be that way. In a 4-player game, like, I agree, the 4-player game, it's not tensity, the strategy will be higher because those pieces will change so much, and the chapters that you're drafting will change so much. That's the other downside of my right turn, that I would say in a 2-player game, you're limited by the cards you get to see. The chapters you get to see are limited based on what you do. So I saw people on Board Game Geek implement house rules where you could wipe those like once a game. You could just say, okay, I'm gonna use my library card to wipe those instead of wiping the tokens. So you could just get rid of all those chapters, because in a 4-player game, you're always drafting chapters, or a 5-player game. The people are going to change through. But as you've seen in a 2-player game, you're only going to see like 20 people total, 20 to 20 something. If you both
max you're seeing 20
max,
people.
right? Exactly. And so you're limited by that. And so that's definitely something to think about. Not that doesn't make it a bad 2-player game, because the game is still the same, but the variety is not there. And if those cards come out that are one certain way, like that's what we realized, most of the cards that came out last night were either no abilities and just high points, or last place abilities. And that was it. There was only one total came out that had icons on the bottom, and Elizabeth got that one very early. I ended up winning that, so I was very happy. I will say this though, and I'm going on about it, but I like the fact that there's not a clear runaway winner. The game is set up to try to limit a runaway leader, but if you don't pay attention what people are drafting, there could be a really big win at the end. Because the first time we played, I looked at the score, and Elizabeth beat me like 101 to 70. And we were tight during it, but she had all these in-game things, right? If the right cards come out to stack in-game points, I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. And I was like, she's going to beat me again, because she was running away with the chapters, and she finished both times we played, or 2 of the 3 times we played, she got her 8th chapter, and I didn't even get my 8th chapter. I think the first time I only got 6 chapters. So there is a chance. The point of that is the gameplay for a gamer is super light, but there is enough strategy that even I had fun with that, except in the fact that it's not Agricola, it's not Viticulture, it's not these super heavy games with lots of stuff. But the cleanness of that makes it easier, and the board will change even more in a 4 or 5-player game. But there's strategy there. If you're trying to win, you have to really pay attention to what's going on. But the game is so good, I get so wrapped up in, oh my gosh, and Frank just came out. I really want to, or someone came out. I have no idea who that is. I want to get them just because I want to read their chapter. I mean, I'm not lying when I say that. That's half of it. Is like, I have no idea who that is. I really want that because they look cool.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. This is a game that, and if you're down with it, Jason, I say we just head into the cookie scale.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is a game that for me, I know I will be taking home for the holidays. Because with my parents, Lindsay's parents, none of the 4 of them heavy gamers at all, but they can easily dive into this. Even my sister-in-law, not a heavy gamer, but the theme is so good that she would be willing to learn. And it's so easy to learn. Yeah. But there's depth to it, in that I really feel like I can lean into the strategy side of it. So there's enough of a taste there for my mouth of like, okay, I can see this. And I would say that at 2 players, it is probably its worst in terms of like getting to see the game play out. It's the simplest, but it's also at its worst. And yet, even at 2, I still absolutely loved it. And so for me, honestly, it's a double doozy.
Oh,
it is a game that I feel like if you enjoy history at all, this is just going to be a home run for you. If you are learning how to play games, like this easily jumped into my like top 3 for games I would, if I was transitioning someone into games, I would play this over, like, I look at the 3 major gateway games, right? Catan, Carcassonne, Ticket to Ride.
Yeah.
Ticket to Ride is probably the only one that I would play over this game with a fresh, like, you've never played any new hobby games.
Yeah.
Just because you get drafting, you get resource management, you get different powers that shape the game, different in-game scoring goals. Like, there's so much packed into such a simple boat or a simple box, and then the quality's there. It just, I think it's a standout for me. And I really thought about like a chocolate chip, but I just went to, how could I, like, I know that if I would have played this at your house, it would have been waiting for me when I got home, like 100%. And so for that reason, it's actually a double doozy for me.
I have, what's funny is when we started this episode, I realized I had not really settled on something, because each time I thought about it, I was going around and around, right? And your description of what's good about this game hits everything correctly. Like, I agree 1,000%. I know you're going to do more 100%. Agree 1,000%, right? And when you talk about the 3 gateway games for teaching, it's funny because I'm like, that's Ticket to Ride is still one for sure. To me, I'll always be happy to teach that. Carcassonne has actually been replaced by Cascadia, even though Carcassonne has a little bit more. Carcassonne is that OG one. Like, my Carcassonne is still in wrapping. I have an old one that a lot of the pieces got lost. We're talking about your Catan still in wrapping. My Carcassonne is up there, and it's actually still in plastic. Not for any specific reason, because I still love Carcassonne. I played on my app a good bit. Cascadia has changed that. And so, like, I'm struggling here with what I want my rating to be. I still have to be honest to myself, right? For my games, everything you hit is true. It teaches you drafting, because you're going to draft the cards off the board, not traditional drafting when you're passing, like a Seven Wonders, but it's teaching you drafting from that. It's teaching you resource management. Totally. It teaches you resource management, because I got to grab these resources, see what I do to turn in. It teaches you how to use ongoing powers, right? In-game bonuses, ongoing powers, right? Those are things that a lot of these other games don't have for those very things. So you're having to think about all these. But again, the teach is 5 minutes, and you can get it out. Put the board, like you said, putting the game together is laying everything out. It's like, other than shuffling, 5 minutes to lay everything out, 5 minutes to teach, and you're going. And the game's not super long. Like, our game was maybe 30 minutes. It really, what takes time is because we enjoy stopping and reading the chapters, really. I mean, if we just played the game, it'd be much quicker than that. If we were just playing it like Splendor, Doom, it'd be like a 15 to 20 minute 2-player game. You hit the nail on the head that even though the 2-player variant, we both agree, would be the least desirable, is still really, really good. And you can play this a lot. And while the gameplay will be similar, there's so many different powers in the game that the game variability is super high. You had everything you said had almost moved me up one, but I'm going to stick where I was at originally. And that's a chocolate chip. Because I like so many games. I love so many games. This is my rating of that, not necessarily my rating of what I think you, the listener, would think of it or why it should be that. But this is actually my personal rating for it. It's all of those things. And chocolate chip is still really good. Like, I don't have too many other games that they're that close. I mean, when I think about Downforce or Dinosaur Island, and I think this is almost rated as high as that, that's pretty crazy for this game, but it's still true. It's such a great game. I love it. Like, it's not getting a lot of, I went to go look at other people, and there's not a lot of content creators who are talking about it. I think because it is so light, right? So many of the games they review are heavier. This game is super light, but the way you broke out all the things it teaches for gamers, I'm like, I had not thought about the plethora of, it's teaching so many things about gaming that as you move into heavier games, you're like, oh, we love to say, like in Splendor, you do this. Well, here's how you do that. Or like in Carcassonne, well, if you learn this game, you'll be like, oh, how in HerStory you gather these resources, and how HerStory there's this end game. You can now start using that as a reference for newer gamers as they move up to those heavier things. It's a chocolate chip, but it's like right on the edge. It won't ever pass that, but that's how good the game is. I will say this. We'll clarify two things. One is it was when I wrote the show notes, it was $20 on Amazon. As of today, it's back to $40, which is still not a bad price. A $40 game for the quality of the products. But if you're looking to buy it, just keep an eye out because they've been jumping up and down on sales. Like I got it for a really good sale. Robbie got it for a good discount, and literally just yesterday it was $20 on Amazon. I checked today, it's back to $40. It's worth it for $40, and I'm being totally honest, but being also 100%. Honest and saying that they've had sales. So hang on a little bit. I will highlight one thing for you though, Robbie, and was interesting. Emerson Matsuuchi also designed the Century games, which kind of makes sense when you look at the set collection and the resource gathering and gathering those cards to do something, right? I can see of the three designers, Emerson, he's mostly known for the Century games, and it makes sense for how those games are because it's similar gameplay in that you're getting resources to gather those cards. So I thought you can kind of see that once you do that. So, but chocolate chip cookie, HerStory, fantastic. Love it.
Yeah, it is. And it's one of those, I can see exactly what you're saying. I can see why the Dice Tower and things like that. Like if you're trying to target deep into the hobby gaming niche, like this is not, no one's going to walk away from this and be like, wow, dude, I'm mentally exhausted right now because of playing HerStory.
Yep.
But it's still from a like competitive standpoint looking and being like, all right, cool. How do I want to tackle this? If you want to try to plan out a bunch of turns, you can, and that will help you be successful. But you're also, because of the catch-up mechanics that we talked about, you can play it as it comes, and it's very easy. Like this is also a beautiful social game in terms of you have the reading of the stories and things like that. Like that's fantastic, but it's also so lightweight. Like this is a game that I could see us when I'm up there for a visit. Like, okay, we like Brad and Kimberly are over and they got to help with the kid for a moment. And so they're doing that. And we're like, hey, we're just going to play this game real fast. Like, no worries. And we'll dive into it. You can be catching up with people while you're talking about it. And it's your turn. Okay. I'm a research. I'll take that token.
For sure.
And that's your turn. Like, it's just that easy. So
that's
super
That's
great.
Definitely it. Everything you're hitting, not that you don't do it to everyone, but like everything you're hitting all cylinders today, every description of it is so true about this. The one thing I will add to that, and we alluded to it earlier, as a father to a daughter and two boys as well, this is a great game for someone who has young girls in their life and you want to play games so they can learn games. The selfish side of I'm trying to teach my kids how to play games, the traditional tabletop hobby games, but also actually have a true history added and not super deep where you won't forget it, and very, very appropriate for every card we've read is age appropriate. There's nothing controversial on any of those things. They're not hitting any of the tough topics of today. They're playing black and white information of what these amazing women have done. If you have young kids, young girls especially, but even young boys, because they need to see about all these amazing women. If this game had been out when my kids were 10, 11, and 12, 100% I would have bought this and we would have played it. Not all the time, but enough that we would know, oh, okay, I remember that Malala was this person. You know, like we would get to the point, like we remember what the stories were. Like Wu Zetian, every time she comes up, I'm going to know she was the first and only female emperor of China. Just that's so cool. The historical nature of this, while also teaching you so many elements of gaming, it just can't be beat. Like I can't say it enough. Yeah. It's a great game.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more on if you have little boys, I think history books do a really good job of trying to tell story. But it always feels like when I think back to world history, when I think back to U.S. history, it's like, all right, cool. We're going to learn about this. And by the way, there's like 3 paragraphs in there about this female leader, this female whatever. And so there are a lot of her stories that haven't been told.
Yep.
And this game encapsulates it a lot. So if this sounds interesting to you, let us know in the comments. Let us know in a review what you've been thinking about this game, what sounds intriguing. And this is like truly, I agree with Jason. At $40, it's 100% still worth it because of the ingredient or like the components. Not ingredients. We're not cooking anything. That's a different game,
yeah.
But it's still worth it, but it really is. It goes on sale on a regular basis. And so if you wait it out, you'll still find a really good deal for it. So Jason, any final thoughts for the episode?
No, man, I had a good time talking about this for sure. I could what's funny is like, this is a game I feel like I've talked the longest each time I've talked because there's so many things I want to say about it, even though I've played these other games so many more times and they're so much more highly rated. This one is not, it could be recency bias. I can't totally deny maybe recency bias if I've just played it last night. But the more I talk about this, the more I realize, especially with our conversation tonight, oh yeah, that's there. Oh, that's there. That's there. Not super heavy, but just enough. It's so good. So yeah, I keep saying the same thing over and over, but it is that good. It's not the greatest game ever. It's not winning a ton of awards from a game perspective, but these kind of games are important to have, easy to play, not convoluted, but not so basic. It's just rolling a die and moving a piece. It's more than that, while also giving us good historical information with fantastic production. So it can't be beat.
No, absolutely. Well, y'all, we want to thank you for listening. Once again, if you are watching this on YouTube, if you'll hit that like button, hit that subscribe, helps us get more traffic, get in front of more people, to help have more people at the table. If you're listening to this on your podcast platform and you haven't dropped a review already, we're getting reviews on those different things. And so, we are super, super grateful for that. Your feedback, once again, helps us get in the ears of more people so that we can continue truly to welcome more people to the table. So we hope you have a great rest of your day. Make it fantastic for someone else too. And we will see you in a couple weeks.